Namaste. Today I have 3 short videos, one following the other in continuity about life. The first one would be what is life. The second one, I'll give you my opinions on the meaning of life, and the third would be the purpose of life. So let's start with the first one. What is life? What is life? In physics, what we can observe and measure in physicality is life. For us, the body and brain. And in metaphysics, you go into consciousness. So, in science you have body, brain and mind, and in metaphysics you have consciousness. And life differentiates between the living and the non-living, between the non-living in physicality. And in metaphysicality, consciousness is slower in the plants and a little higher in the animals and the highest in the human beings. So, life relates around the essence of consciousness. Consciousness, I would say, is the source and the essence of life. Like, suppose if I cut off a part of my body, life still remains. But if I cut off my brain, and if the mind disappears, consciousness disappears. There is no life. So mind is what shows us what life is all about. And the conscious principle, which is the totality of the mind into different sections: unconscious, subconscious, conscious, superconscious. So the conscious principle is what determines the wakefulness and the aliveness of life. The living of life is determined by the consciousness and not by the body and the brain. You see, you may remove the brain, and if the mind is not there, life is not there. And if conscious is not there, mind is not there. So ultimately it's the metaphysicality which science is desperately trying to grasp. Determines life. Determines life. And consciousness is the most important factor. It makes us feel, it makes us think, it makes us emotional, it provides desires, and it gives, and we experience to realize what life is all about, what living is all about. So ultimately it revolves around consciousness. And another factor of consciousness is it is unique. Every living creature is unique. Plant is unique, animals is unique, and we say out of 7.5 billion people, all have unique consciousness. All have unique consciousness. It creates a uniqueness, and that uniqueness is our individuality, which differs from its personality. Personality is the outer, and individuality or the uniqueness is the inner reflection of our life. So, life provides us the word which we call as the self. The self. The soul is supposed to be the true self, which is not in duality, which is in non-duality, which is in purity, which is in totality, which is in wholesomeness. It is that divine within us, and the rest is the mind, the subconscious and the conscious. So, the thinking self is the conscious and the unconscious, and the non-thinking self, where there is no partiality, there is no analysis, there is no evaluation, what we have is the true self. And then we have the physical self. So there are these three selves in us. But in reality or in actuality, I would say actuality, there is no life and there is no self. Why? Which is strange. That is very strange, because in the ultimate reality, in the universe, in totality, in absoluteness, in wholesomeness, what do we have? Both science and spiritualism agree. Mere waves of energy, where all, science says where all is one, and metaphysics or spiritualism says all is not two. After all is not two, we do not have one, we have nothingness. They call it shunyata. Shunyata. And that nothingness is not empty. It is not empty. It has on its own it's attributeless, but from within itself, temporary matter and consciousness, solid liquids and gases, different forms of energies appear and disappear, back into that emptiness of the nothingness, back into the eternity of that nothingness, that infinite nothingness of dark energy, which is 96% as per science. And in those waves of energy, science further claims that we are empty space. 99.999% of the atoms is empty space. Electrons, the electromagnetic activity. So, self and life, what is it determined by? I had said consciousness. Now, how is consciousness? What is consciousness determined by? The observer. The observer. So, the most important factor in life is the observer. If the observer could not observe, there would be no universe. There would be nothing. Whatever I see around is through my observation. The Hindu sages called it Sakshi, the witnesser, the watcher, the observer is that divine within. Prajnanam Brahma. That's the commandment of the Rig Veda as the Mahavakya. It's the Sakshi, which is the all in all. It is the Sakshi, the pure consciousness, which they refer to, or the total awareness, which is everything. For a dance, you require a dancer. For witnessing, you require a witnesser. For observation, you require an observer. For life, you require an observer. So, in that nothingness of the universe, in matter and consciousness, observer is the observed, because all is not two. Advait Vedanta. All is not two. Eventually, matter and consciousness dissolves into the nothingness, attributeless, absolute energy in totality and wholesomeness, where there is nothing, just energy, just Brahman, that's all. And what is energy? The ability. And the supreme ability of the energy is to make the mind aware. to make the mind aware. And the human mind is utmost in awareness, and through which consciousness is formed. So, matter and consciousness are matter related to science, consciousness related to spiritualism, so the material and the spiritual. In reality, in the ultimate reality, nothing exists, and because of that zero existence, existence is a thing which can be observed and measured, restricted to space and time, whereas waves of energy are infinite in the infinitude of the universe, just flowing as nothing in the emptiness, without occupying any space or time, in the timelessness of the universe. And we exist temporarily, and because of our mind there is life, and because of the mind there is self, because the soul, the spirit, the awareness is settled in the superconscious section of the mind, from which life emerges and consciousness becomes the essence of life. Thank you very much for the first part. The next one will be on the meaning of life. Thank you very much.